things first, I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer, Cris. This is a much bigger version of Nick Wright. Bigger, taller, stronger, definitely taller. This is Cris Canny, who's joining us today, filling in for Nick.
Welcome, my man, CC and CC.
Friend
of the show.
To have you here.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we got a lot to talk about. A big NFL weekend to preview, but where else would we start than Thursday night football? Saints in Dallas.
Nick's in L.A. He was watching LeBron last night. We'll catch up on that
to face a team that many thought would need a miracle to win. First quarter, Dallas gets on the board. They strike first. Dak Prescott finds Zeke for the touchdown. Cowboys up 7. They take a 10-0 lead into the second. Saints now driving. Jalen Smith takes down Alvin Kamara at the 1. New Orleans decides to go for it, and DeMarcus Lawrence and Tyrone Crawford take down Kamara on 4th down. Big stop by the Cowboys, but the Saints would crawl back into it. Drew Brees to Keith Kirkwood in the end zone. That made it 13-10 Dallas. Saints driving for the win. Looks like a lock. It is Drew Brees. But how about this? The brutal interception. Cowboys take the win 13-10. That is their 4th win in a row. And here's their quarterback, Dak Prescott, after the game.
I mean, I think anytime you go out there and beat a team that's won 10 games straight, it's somewhat of a statement. But it's not anything that we can hang our hats on and say, yeah, we're pleased with doing.
The whole nation thought we were going to lose, and we came out, we shocked the world. And I mean, the crazy thing about it is we could have played so much better.
The battle is won, but the war just begins. The rest of the league, seeing how we're playing football together, and they're gonna want a piece of it.
We didn't really find a rhythm for pretty much the whole game. You know, I mean, I guess we may have had one decent drive, but for the most part, I felt like we were just didn't really find a great rhythm with what we were doing. Yeah, I mean, so credit to them.
And CC, that right there was the key to the game, is Dallas found a way to upset that Saints rhythm, to upset Brees and the rhythm that he usually likes, and that affected his accuracy, it affected his confidence, affected his footwork. How did they do it? How did the Cowboys upset the Saints?
And Jenna, you're so right. In sports, it's so much about rhythm and what you want to do and what are your habits and the things that make you very, very comfortable. And the Dallas Cowboys, what they were able to do, and you got to give a lot of credit. A lot of the players, the telecast, it was as well documented during the telecast with Troy and Joe, as far as Jason Garrett, his emotion before the players. And obviously, it's very, very tricky to a guy who's not used to giving pregame speeches, and if you give one the night before the game, it can go one or two ways. The players can see through it, being like, oh, he's not being authentic, but obviously the Cowboys players read into it. They had a great game plan. Rod Marinelli, their defensive coordinator, did a tremendous job where they were very aggressive from the beginning. They would not let the Saints get into any wide open situations, as far as they were compressing the wide receivers at the line, and their linebackers were able to get off of blocks. Their defensive line did a great job. I know you were seeing that, not getting to that second level. So their approach, as far as they were going to take the fight to the Saints, that was the reason why the Saints couldn't get any rhythm. And the Saints wide receivers and running backs, they weren't catching the ball as clean. So it was a number of things, but the game plan and how they went. This to me was like a college energy game. The Dallas Cowboys defense played like they were in college. You could see Dak a few times when he ran the ball, the type of energy that he was playing with. That's the reason why the Saints couldn't get any rhythm, Cris.
Well, the biggest thing that I noticed in watching that game was the urgency that they were playing with, both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively. And we look at that Dallas Cowboys defense, of course, you know you've got to be able to make Drew Brees uncomfortable and put pressure on him. But one of the areas that they had struggled with during the course of the season was on 3rd down. They were outstanding on 3rd down and getting off of the field. I think the Saints had 3 first downs in the entire first half. When's the last time we heard about a Saints offense only having 3 first downs in one half of football? You just don't see it. But that's exactly what happened last night. And the offense did a great job of playing keep away with Drew Brees, being able to put together 8, 12, 14, 16-play drives. CC, when you can have the ball for 36 minutes, guess what that does? That doesn't allow Drew Brees and that Saints offense many opportunities to score points. So I thought it was complimentary football at its best, and the intensity that I saw this team play with reflects the comments that were made by not only the head coach Wednesday night when addressing the team, but also the owner, Jerry Jones, at the beginning of the week when he says we have to play every play like it's a play in the Super Bowl. That's exactly what it looked like last night.
And it was also validation for how Jerry Jones, if you will, and Jason Garrett put this team together. Remember, we talked about early in the season. It's not the sexiest thing in the world, but they're going to be run by their defense. It's going to be defense first, and Dak Prescott may not throw the ball like every other quarterback that's throwing this season, but if they are going to win, their defense is going to have to come up big, and yesterday they came up big.
It was a breath of fresh air. We thought there was a number of things could happen in this game. Canty and we talked about it yesterday compared to the guys not here. We thought Dallas had a chance.
Yeah, I asked you.
And because of how they go about doing it, they got a lot of good young players on their defense, very, very fast. And when you couple that with, they got great coverage on the back end. Now, their secondary is very, very young, but the number of things that Dallas did that I was very, very impressed with. Offensively, the second half with a 10-0 lead. If you saw on first down when they came out, they were throwing the ball when they came out the second half. Now, not great numbers, not success, but the pattern for which they were trying to establish, we're ahead, and we're not going to be scared, and we're going to win this game and not lose it. I thought that was significant for the Cowboys in that second half.
And I think they got improved quarterback play as well. I know I've been critical of Dak Prescott a lot on this show and on other platforms just because he hasn't done the things that you would expect for a quarterback trying to take that next step in year 3.
Especially after the first year he
had. Yeah, but some of the throws that he made last night were just big-time throws. I mean, you look at the double move in the first half to Amari Cooper. You look at the deep out to Michael Gallup.
Yes.
Now, he missed on a double move to Michael Gallup late in that game. That could have changed the complexion of it. But he also converted a key third down with his legs on that drive. So, I mean, there were some things that Dak Prescott did in this game that I have to say, you know what? You got to make those types of plays if you're going to beat a team that's led by Drew Brees and an offense as explosive as the Saints. But one of the things that the Cowboys defense did last night that I was impressed with was how they were in sudden change. After the Amari Cooper fumble, they allowed the Saints to drive the ball down in the red zone, but guess what? They stood up on that goal line sequence. Jalen Smith makes an outstanding open field tackle on Alvin Kamara. Then DeMarcus Lawrence stuffs him in the backfield on that fourth down.
That complimentary football
they got the ball back. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, absolutely.
And then look at the sack fumble by Cam Jordan. They come right back 2 plays later, and they get the interception. So, I mean, those are the types of things that you have to do if you want to be a championship-level team. And I think the Dallas Cowboys proved to themselves last night when they play their A game, they can compete with anybody.
Also, it was a breath of fresh air for people like yourself who made their living, making it hard on the quarterback. This was an NFL game where you seen guys getting hard hit and they weren't throwing flags on the quarterback. So I think it was a breath of fresh air that. Remember a couple Monday nights ago, we saw, oh, man, Kansas City versus the Rams. Oh, this is the new NFL. I told you, no, there's going to come a time in November and December where teams are going to play some defense. And you could see this is going to be the formula. If you want to be able to win, if you want to be able to go against one of those teams, you better have some numbers a lot like this. You can't let them have the ball 65, 70 plays. In last night's game, you saw the Saints only had the ball 49 plays. Typically, they're getting 65. NFL averages 65 plays. Points, we know it was obvious. They only got 10. They were averaging 37. The yards and the disparity in yards between them and the time of possession, I thought, was the biggest thing. Leading the NFL over 32 minutes. The Cowboys were able to flip that, and you can't win a game only having 49 plays, 10 points, and that time of possession. So those were the things that the Cowboys did were very, very impressive in last night's win, Jenna.
We talked about this win. If they were able to beat the Saints, it would be a statement win. It wouldn't just be another win and you're doing great in the NFC East. Oh, this is a statement win. So, but now you look at the NFC East, they're 7-5. Does it put them in another category? Do you see this team as true contenders now?
Well, I said a couple of weeks ago that I felt like the Dallas Cowboys were going to win the NFC East. And I know Nick said, I don't know if you can come out there and say that with the Washington Redskins leading the division. But when you looked at the schedule and how this Cowboys team is built, I mean, the identity of this team should translate into success into December and January if they play into that. And last night they did that because Ezekiel Elliott, he's the guy that has to be the catalyst for that offense. He had 29 total touches last night for 136 yards and scored the only Cowboys touchdown. So, I mean, if you run the offense through him and then allow Dak Prescott to pick and choose his spots to take shots, I think this is going to be a much more effective offense and it's going to be a better team. We all know about their defense. It's a championship caliber defense. They got playmakers on all 3 levels. But I think when the offense is able to do what they did last last night and being able to limit the opposing team's offense with the number of possessions, because the Saints only had the ball 9 times. You typically get 11 or 12 possessions in a game. So if you only have 9 of those and in 3 of those possessions or 2 of those possessions, they were 3 and outs, I look at this and I say that's exactly what you have to do if you're that Cowboys offense. The defense will show up, but the offense came to the party last night.
Jenna, a few things have to happen if they're going to do this. They have to be ultra aggressive on the defensive end, game in and game out. They have to play smarter football than they played in last night's game. The mistakes that they made as young football players, Randy Gregory lining up offside, those types of things in big games, they will cause you to get beat. And on the offensive side, since they have traded for Amari Cooper, since the development of Michael Gallup, you can start to see they got more speed on the offense, and these guys are starting to make plays. Dak is a better quarterback, but they have better talent around him. So keep that theory, that same philosophy in 10 days. Try to duplicate that. Yeah. That's how the Cowboys are able to get win number 5. Very impressive, 4 in a row, though, this late in the season.
All right, so the Cowboys beating up on the Saints, snapping their 10-game win streak. We'll talk much more about this coming up. But on the other side, we'll preview another game. Can the Steelers rebound after their tough loss on Sunday? That's next on First Things First. Welcome back. We'll get to Rivers versus Big Ben in a second. But first, a couple of big plays from last night. Jordan Lewis coming up big with this game-winning interception on Drew Brees, CC.
Amazing. This defense was everywhere they had to be. Drew Brees, we hadn't seen him make throws like that. You start seeing ghosts at the end of the game. You hit a guy hard for 3 quarters, can't he?
That's exactly what happened.
He let that one go before he knew where the receiver was going to be.
No, 100%. And you see Malik Collins getting pressure up the middle. That's key with Drew Brees because he ain't a tall guy. You got to be able to push the pocket with him. That affected that throw.
Kings and Clippers. De'Aaron Fox splitting the D, throws an alley-oop to Marvin Bagley. Watch it. Oh, boom.
Last year, a lot of people complained. De'Aaron Fox, rookie from Kentucky, not necessarily the numbers you want to see. Man, Sacramento, though, they're playing some good ball, though. Good young roster.
They're playing some good ball. A lot of losing went into acquiring those young, talented players, though. A lot of losing.
Pacers-Lakers. Darren Collison thinks he's got an easy layup. Lonzo Ball hustles back, swats the shot off the backboard. Lonzo said he'd be back Thursday.
Oh, no, he came back. He could have easily eased up on this one. It was great to see. Lonzo makes a lot of little plays at being a good basketball player, a good basketball team. That's why you want him on the roster.
Listen, Lonzo trying to get in where he fit in. He know they don't need him out there with LeBron James. He making sure that he can stay around.
Great game last night. Warriors-Raptors. KD with the ball down 3, gets to the corner, knocks down a tough 3-pointer. We'll talk much more about this, but Warriors lost in overtime to Toronto. I like these two teams together, see?
Yeah, Jenna, but you're one of the few people who realized, Jenna was like, why didn't they foul KD at the end? I was like, I know. Nick Nurse, the rookie coach there, man, like you got to foul KD. You can't let him shoot that one, bro.
You know how it is. When you're a rookie in a pressure situation, sometimes your brain don't necessarily work like you want it to.
No, Jenna said he's a rookie. Acted like a rookie in that moment.
There you go.
That's what I always say. Let's look ahead to the weekend. Big matchup in the AFC from 2 quarterbacks in that 2004 draft. You got your 8-3 Chargers heading to Pittsburgh to take on the 7-3-1 Steelers. Both Phillip Rivers and Ben Roethlisberger still playing at a high level in year 15, although one of them does talk more than the other. Here's the one that talks a little bit less, Phillip Rivers, on going up against Big Ben.
He's been a heck of a player for them for a long time. So again, it's never about the other quarterback. You've got to worry about that defense, but it's always I always enjoy and appreciate when the quarterback on the opposing side, whether you're linked from the draft class or whether it's a guy that's of his caliber, it's always awesome going against those led teams by those kind of guys.
He's an MVP caliber player, and he's playing at MVP level right now. What he did last week was pretty spectacular, 25 in a row. It's hard to follow all the games because he's on the West so much, but it's easy because he's a quarterback to kind of keep track of how he's doing.
It's kind of one of those just old school NFL atmospheres, and throw the fact that it's in December with 2 teams that are, right there in the hunt in the AFC, right there in the hunt, and you expect a heck of a game.
All right, Cris Canny, I'll start with you. Chargers, Steelers, Phillip Rivers and Big Ben. A game that it's just going to be one of these gritty, I love a game like this. Who do you think has got the edge in this one?
Well, I got to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers because they're the home team. I think this will be a closely contested game, but I mean, I understand the environment that the Chargers are going into. I was with the Ravens in that division. I know about what's playing in Heinz Field is like in December and on into January.
One of the real home field advantages that we have in the league.
There are some passionate football fans in Western Pennsylvania, and I'm telling you, they show up for their Pittsburgh Steelers, especially this time of year with the kind of team that they have. So the Steelers have been on the road the last couple of weeks. They've been struggling. They haven't looked like themselves down the road in Jacksonville. Turned the football over a whole lot down there. Denver didn't get much better. Their run defense has been leaky. So, I mean, I'm looking at all of these different things, and the Steelers and Mike Tomlin probably taking the approach, you know what, let's regroup. We're going back home. This is a get-right game for us. So I look at this as an opportunity for them, but they've got to clean up all of the mistakes that they've had, CC. They're -6 in the turnover margin in the last 2 weeks. That's not winning football.
And that's also Ben Roethlisberger, especially in the red zone. Like, turnovers are, they all cost you, but when you take the opportunity that we can score points and then you give that momentum to the defense or to the opposition, that's something that Ben Roethlisberger, when you look at the amount of red zone interceptions, you look at the list that he's on, that's not a list that Ben should be on. But getting back to it as far as an old-fashioned matchup, Jenna, with you and I, we viewed a lot of football, Kelly, Marino, Elway, Marino. Like, this is one of those old-style battles like this. Two guys that have played tremendous football for a long, long time. One of them having Super Bowl success, the other one no Super Bowl success. You know, so both of them will ultimately end up with a Hall of Fame jacket. I'm looking forward to this. It's a big, big treat. In this game, I want to be able to see a matchup. Last week, Joey Bosa coming back was his dominant self, 5 tackles, 2 sacks. He's going to be a force coming down the stretch. The last 5 games, the Pittsburgh Steelers, he's missed Marcus Gilbert. Don't know if he's going to play in this game. So if he doesn't play, they're going to have a replacement there. And strange thing about it, Marcus Gilbert, he's older than Joey Bosa. Both of them went to St. Thomas Aquinas. They're in Fort Lauderdale. So I know Marcus Gilbert was looking forward to playing against a young Joey Bosa. Joey Bosa's going to take out some of that pain on that Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line.
Which of these two quarterbacks are going to have to play better for their team to win?
I'm going to say Phillip Rivers because he's missing Melvin Gordon.
I mean,
listen, Big Ben has not had Lev Bell all season, so James Conner has done a great job of filling in 1,300 yards from scrimmage and north of 10 touchdowns. So, I mean, I look at the loss of Melvin Gordon in this game, and I say, okay, Phillip Rivers is going to have to use the short passing game as an extension of the run game because Austin Eckler is not going to be able to get those tough yards in between the tackles like Melvin Gordon. So I think there's probably more pressure on Phillip Rivers to keep his team in this game because this is going to be a hostile environment. This is the first time for a lot of those guys in this type of atmosphere because it's going to be an electric atmosphere, a playoff type of feel. And so Phillip Rivers is the guy that going into that situation can settle everything down for all of those young players because this is an upstart Chargers team. They just so happen to have an older quarterback.
I'm going to ask both of you this as former players. The Steelers are coming off a week where their quarterback called out a couple different players, a couple different coaches, a couple different plays that were called. Does any of that seep into the game plan, seep into what you're going to see from guys like AB or whoever else he talked about last week?
Normal people, it would affect them. Normal people, it would. Not the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is how they operate. And Ben Roethlisberger, say what you want to, through controversy, through bad games. When he makes a mistake, Ben normally comes back and plays a great game. That's what he's done. It's part of kind of his mantra. It's kind of what he's kind of been about in the league. So I expect him in November at home to play the type of game. I look for him to extend plays even longer than he would normally because this is a very, very important game. Them being 7-3-1. Chargers are 8-3. Now, them being right behind New England and trying to keep pace to potentially get a bye. Man, this is a very, very important game. I expect Ben to bounce back. And as we talk about all the time, you know, different rules for different families. This culture in Pittsburgh, a little bit different.
A little bit different, CC. And Pittsburgh has got it all out in front of them because they do have another matchup with the Patriots. But keep in mind, the Chargers ain't but one game behind the Kansas City Chiefs. They ain't conceding the division to the Chiefs. So they're going to come in there with some intensity, too. But Pittsburgh has got to fix all the mistakes.
Here's what you're not used to. Usually during a segment like this, we get a weather report. I'm going to give you enough time to get that for a Sunday night in Pittsburgh.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be in the 30s. It's Pittsburgh-style weather. weather? Yeah, absolutely. I knew that because I looked at the Indy weather, and the weather travels from west to east. So my gathering was, okay, that weather in Indy on Saturday will be there on Sunday.
I see how you did that right
thank
there.
you.
Gotcha.
Got to take a break. I love when he does it.
Al Roker, I'm coming for you.
Yeah, Al, you should be concerned. Coming up, what went so wrong for Drew Brees and the Saints last night? We'll dive back in next on First Things First.
I want a job anywhere they can show my legs more.
There you go.
I want to stand up.
So
now, if I said that.
sock game.
You could say that, Jenna. You got great legs.
Tonight on Fox, the Pac-12 champion will be crowned as number 17 Utah battles number 11 Washington. Then tomorrow, number 6 Ohio State, number 21 Northwestern go toe-to-toe for the Big Ten title. Coverage begins at 7 Eastern. Tonight and tomorrow on Fox and the Fox Sports app.
CC Dwayne Haskins looking
better check him
good.
out. Giants
fans,
really good. I heard y'all was talking about him on the radio. All right, I'm going to get a little scouting report. I'm having dinner with him tonight at 5:30. I'll get that for you.
Okay, we need that. We need that.
All right, time for us to go viral. Check out the King warming up from earlier this week, showing that even at age 119, he can still elevate.
It's impressive.
That's ridiculous. I mean, you should be able to do that.
First try.
Yeah.
First try. No, not the ball. I lost it. Oh, the toss was bad.
I didn't see he was through the legs, too.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
Yeah, he's pretty phenomenal.
And he's just teasing us. He ain't going to be in the slam dunk contest.
No, he ain't going to do it. But see, the fact that he actually did that in a game one time, off the backboard to himself and dunked it.
Yeah. In the finals.
Yeah, when you pulling that off in a game.
Then you can call yourself the King.
Yes.
Not practice.
He pretty good, man. He pretty good. Forget what Nick Wright say. He pretty good.
Time for stories to start your morning. A big matchup between two stars on the rise. Baker and the Browns heading to Houston to face Deshaun Watson and the Texans. Houston trying to make it 9 wins in a row. Kenny, who do you like in this one?
I'm going to roll with the guy that's the better athlete in this one. That's Deshaun Watson. You saw at points in that game on Monday night against the Titans, he was able to use his legs to either extend plays or convert for first downs and keep the chains moving. So I like what Deshaun Watson brings to the table. I know Baker Mayfield is a playmaker, but Baker is not the athlete that Deshaun Watson is, and I don't think that Baker has the supporting cast, skill position players, and defense that Deshaun does.
Baker is playing well, especially the last 4 weeks, but let's not get this mixed up. Baker, don't run into J.J. Watt because he's not having it.
It's not a good
Last year, he did an amazing charity work. This year, he ain't in the charity work. He doing work on the field. J.J. Watt is back. Be careful, Baker. Be careful. Come up missing in Houston.
The Rams will try to stay atop the NFC when they face the Lions on Sunday, looking to win their 3rd straight and can clinch the NFC West with a win. CC, you think the Rams pull this one out?
It's going to be a good game. The Rams, they got to get back after that bye week, after that little lull there. I'm looking forward to Lee potentially could be coming back in the secondary, and I believe their defense gets a lot better with him. He's back for coverage. Add one more person to the box for to shore up that run defense. I think the Rams will be focused going into Detroit. Detroit been practicing in the snow. They can't wait to get to the field.
I'm telling you about that. I'm telling you. But here's the one thing I will say. Detroit, that's a really sleepy place to play going into that stadium.
1 o'clock, West Coast team, too.
It's a little different. So the Rams got to make sure that they show up with the level of intensity that's required to go out there and compete because you got to respect all of your opponents. They're still an NFL team.
All right, back to last night's game. Ezekiel Elliott had a solid performance, 136 yards from scrimmage, scored the Cowboys' only touchdown. See, what'd you make of Zeke's night?
This is the kind of night that you need. If you're going to be this type of franchise where your quarterback, you don't want him to throw the ball more than 30 times, Emmitt Smith would have grinded it out a night like this tonight. I like the fact, too, they're utilizing him in the passing game, not over 4 yards per carry, but the intensity and the intent. We're going to run the ball regardless. The Saints' run defense was impressive. Ezekiel, this is how you have to be able to play. He got a mini bye week, get fresh. Look for him to be strong coming down the stretch.
CC, in a big-time game, you got to trust your big-time players, and it's just that simple. And I think Jason Garrett did the right thing last night in running that offense through Ezekiel Elliott. We've been saying it all year. It ain't that complicated.
Right.
Give number 21 the ball as many times as you can.
Not pretty.
Not pretty, but
effective.
And it's effective. But the one thing is, you got to have your defense be able to keep the game close enough to give it to Zeke. And they did that last night.
All right, the other side of this one, tough night for Drew Brees, threw for just 127 yards and a crucial interception in the 4th quarter as the Saints fell to the Cowboys 13-10. Here's their quarterback, Drew Brees, on his approach to the rest of the season.
Here we are at 10-2. Obviously, we'd won 10 in a row, which felt like we were rolling, you know. And So now it's time to get that mojo back and get back to work when we get back and get ready to roll.
All right, Cece, Drew Brees says all the right things. He seems composed in where this team is, what they have to do. What did last night tell you about New Orleans?
Yeah, I thought I saw Drew Brees out front, too, and everything before the show. I was like, man, he got back here quick and everything. No, there was a guy with a Purdue outside. He was yelling stuff outside. But Drew Brees, what you can see in his press conference, just how, not casual, but just how introspective he is right after the game. Not being over emotional, not overreacting. When you look at 12 times in this league, this year they've gone out there and 10 times they've won, 6 times they've scored 40 points. And as bad as they played, they're one drive away from winning this football game. I mean, as bad as they played, the lack of offense, the lack of number of plays, the lack of time they were on the field, if they put together a drive there at the end, they can still win this game. So I know Drew Brees is going to take some positives from this. He's going to overanalyze the negative parts to try to ensure up that inside pass protection, because that did give them a problem. I'm sure that they're not going to get the number of drops by wide receivers that they had in this game. So Drew Brees will respond from this. But this is a tight race. There ain't no margin for error for the Saints coming down the stretch. So this was, I believe, will help the Saints in the long run.
Yeah, I didn't think the Saints were going to go 15-1 this season. I just didn't feel like that. And I knew they would trip up between playing the Dallas Cowboys, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Carolina Panthers twice in the last 5 games. Now, it just so happened to be this game. But the one thing that I can say, a positive that can come from this game, that they'll address some of the things that they haven't been doing well of late. Because we all know that winning is the ultimate deodorant. It covers up all the little things that eventually come back to catch up with you in the end of it. So it's good for the Saints to have this loss, get that team to refocus collectively so they can get back on track. But with the New Orleans Saints and what Drew Brees has done all season long, with the press conferences after the game, he's done a great job of talking to his teammates, see. You're talking about him remaining even keel.
Yes.
Some of the messages that he's been sending out, it's just one game. Even after the Rams win, it's just one game. We still got a whole lot of work to do. When I saw him at that post-game press conference, it was the same type of demeanor. But that's what you would expect from a player like Drew Brees. He's the CEO for that organization. He's an extension of Sean Payton out there on the football field. Now, as far as last night's game is concerned, they do have to shore up that pass protection, especially on the interior, because Malik Collins and Tyrone Crawford, those guys came to work. And even though they don't have the gaudy stats, they created the opportunities for DeMarcus Lawrence and Randy Gregory.
Yeah, because there was no place to step up in that pocket.
There's no place to step up. So they did a good job of collapsing the pocket, but they also did a great job on first and second down, creating longer downs and distances where those guys could hunt. So I think those guys on the interior of that Dallas Cowboys defensive line did a really great job last night.
When you look at a Saints team that had been averaging 37 points a game, 44 over the last 4, and they come out and they score 10 points, your immediate reaction would be, oh, maybe they look past this Dallas team. Maybe this is a Dallas team that wasn't really going anywhere. Maybe they weren't as focused. It was something Drew Brees got asked about a lot in the press conference yesterday. Was there just a lack of a tiny bit of focus because of who you were playing? Obviously, he said, no, this is what we talked about earlier. Is it possible that any part of this team thought this is a winnable game and maybe they let up just a little bit?
I don't think that with a Sean Payton, Drew Brees. We saw Drew after. Now, he was truly prepared for that press conference. I know that they were expecting a hellacious effort from this Dallas, especially Dallas's defense. When you look at the schedule, and Mangini says, don't look ahead. When the Saints' schedule came out and they saw within 7 days that they were playing on Thanksgiving night and playing in Dallas on Thursday night, they knew it was going to take a special effort to be able to win both of those games. In those games, they won the one at home. They lose the one on the road. They're not going to overreact. 12 games, they've won 10 of them. The only team this year to be able to win 10 in a row. So I don't think that this type of team with the maturity they have in a Super Bowl winning quarterback and a Super Bowl winning coach, that at this juncture in the season that they're going to, we have to give Dallas credit. Dallas took the fight to them, their defense. Chris Richards, who came over from Seattle as their former defensive coordinator, working with their secondary, and what he has done, the changes, the aggressive approach that they had when they need to blitz out of that secondary. So, no, we have to give the Dallas Cowboys credit. In the NFL, man, you show up and a team will take the fight to you, and you've been like, there was nothing I could do. Denny Green used to tell us all the time, hey, now, some days you're going to come to work, and an NFL player just going to whoop you. And there's nothing you can do but shake his hand and come back the next week and try to get better at your job. And that's what I took out of last night's game.
No, that's exactly what happened because the Dallas Cowboys didn't play a perfect game, Jenna. I mean, they were 1 of 5 in the red zone. They had a couple of turnovers. And like CC said, there was an opportunity for the Saints when they got that ball back with 2.5 minutes left to go on a game-winning drive.
We all thought they were going to score.
And we all did. But guess what? The Cowboys defense stepped up and they made a play when
made another play.
But that just speaks to the energy and the intensity and the focus that they collectively had as a team.
All right, let's move on to the Patriots. They're hosting the Vikings on Sunday. Sure, the Vikings are on the road, going up against a team with a better record, a better quarterback, and arguably the best coach of all time. Oh, and also they haven't won in New England in 18 years. But don't tell Bill Belichick that. He had high praise for Minnesota, saying they're even better than they were last year. So Belichick. All right, CC, what's the key to Brady and the Patriots taking down this Minnesota team?
Belichick is right. This Vikings team is a lot better. And the reason why, they have a weapon at quarterback compared to a guy having a career season that even in talking, and when I talked last year to Pat Shermer, and it's like, man, hey, Case is hot. He was like, hey, Cris, now, you know how this goes. Hey, be careful. Now they have their quarterback of the future, and Bill Belichick is right about. Now, the defense not playing as well as they played last year, but you can look in the last 3 to 4 weeks, they're starting to get back. Last year, I don't think they had as many weapons from an arsenal rushing the passer. So when Bill Belichick talks about, he's talking about that quarterback, what the defense can do, and Adam Thielen was not playing to the level that he's playing. So, yes, these are some of the things that I've looked at. I think the Vikings, even though they don't have a better record, I think overall they are a better team. And for them to be able to go pull off this upset in New England late in November, couple people that got to be involved. Dalvin Cook, they have to have a running game.
Yes.
They have to rush the ball for at least 130 yards. And Cal Rudolph, very good football player, not having a great season, not because of him, because they throw the ball outside to Thielen and Diggs. Cal Rudolph's got to be able to come up big against that linebacking core. That would be a part, because Belichick, he's going to concentrate on the outside.
Yeah.
He's going to force you to be able to throw the ball to someone else besides their star receivers. So that's what I look. Dalvin Cook, can I establish a running game? Can I throw the ball to him out of the backfield? And Cal Rudolph, the huge tight end, he's got to have a presence Sunday night.
Agreed on all fronts, CC. And when I look at this Minnesota Vikings defense, I would say that they're probably not as good as they were last year, but that's due to the absence of Everson Griffin. He missed about a month of the season because he was dealing with some personal issues. And I think you can't state it enough how important he is to that defensive unit, but also to that team, because they're led by their defense. Their defense has to be the catalyst in how they win games. Still really good on third down, still really good in the red zone, but I'm agreeing with you with the offensive line and that run game. That's got to come along. Some new faces on that offensive line due to injury compared to the group from last year. They got to have more balance. They cannot be a one-dimensional unit and expect to go where they want to be.
Right. I think you make a good point, especially on that defense. Everson Griffin, can he kind of channel the type of emotion that DeMarcus Lawrence put into that defense? He put it out there during the week. This is going to be one of them kind of games we're going to have to choke them out. Now, Griffin typically brings that type of energy. We know he had some mental health stuff. He is back with the team, but he is that emotional leader that could lead to this huge win on the road.
All right, so if you take history out of it, look at the way the Patriots have played this year. There's not a ton of trust. Sometimes they have great games, sometimes they don't. They win more than they lose. Same thing with the Vikings. They have a great stretch, and then they lose to a team like Buffalo. Which team do you trust more if you take all the history out of it, just these two teams getting on the field facing each other?
Well, I'm going to trust the Patriots, and that's mainly because they have Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. I mean, and now what you see what the Patriots offense is doing, being able to run the football, that creates opportunities for Tom Brady in the play-action passing game. You go back a week ago and look at that game against the Jets. They had a lot of sell-it passes in there, especially in the second half. They were able to take advantage of some of the things in the second and the third level of that Jets defense because of what they did in the first half and being able to run the football. So if Sony Michel continues to be that force in the ground game, I got to give the edge to the Patriots just because that offense is going to be really hard to stop.
Yeah, I'm not foolish enough. I mean, and I'm not that lost in my mind to not be able to trust Bill Belichick in a late November game, Tom Brady, a primetime game. Yeah, but let me tell you the task at hand. Brady's got what he's got to do is far more difficult. If you watched that Jets game last week, if that same offense shows up, man, the Vikings are going to have a field day. The Vikings got 4 or 5 rushers that they can throw at New England. So now it becomes, can we control the ball? Sony Michel, you saw him get nicked last week. Without him, they are a different offense. So watch for Gronkowski. Last week we saw him reemerge and get into the end zone. Watch for him to try to ease some of that burden from the young Sony Michel.
And the Patriots will have Sony Michel and they'll have Rob Gronkowski. So there haven't been many games where everyone's been healthy enough and Tom Brady's had all his weapons. So we'll see how that goes. Coming up, is it time to consider the Cowboys as contenders? That's still ahead on First Things First. Welcome back to First Things First. Look who's here, NBA analyst Sarah Kustok. Sarah's usually here when I'm not, so it's such a wonderfully rare occasion.
I love it. I'm ready to jump across the table and give you a hug, Jenna.
Well, okay.
And
that
I like this. We got Kansas.
We got Kenny here, yeah. This is a
big
nice
party.
little ensemble.
Take your time, Nick Wright.
I told you,
real comfortable right here.
The day you take off is the day I lay off. All right? I'm bringing in the ballers. Baller alert. Hashtag First Things First.
All righty then. Kevin Durant, the Warrior. I'm in it. That's me. I'm in it. Yeah.
She didn't know she was included.
I didn't know.
Right?
I never know if I'm included.
Am I a part of this?
KD and the Warriors taking on Kawhi in the Raptors third quarter. Kawhi hits the jumper over Durant. Kawhi had 38 fourth now. Warriors down 6. Kevin Durant hits the three-pointer to cut the lead in half. Then less than 10 seconds to go. KD another 3, forcing overtime. KD would finish with 51 points. However, Raptors would prevail. Overtime. Danny Green hitting the 3 to put Toronto up 3. They go on to win 131-128. The Warriors are now 4-6 in their last 10 games. Sarah, let's start with you. Did this seem like an NBA Finals preview watching these two teams?
It felt like a very intense game for this point of the regular season. I mean, how much fun was it watching?
Playoff atmosphere.
Without a doubt, especially given the fact that the Warriors were, of course, missing Steph Curry, missing Draymond Green. They could have just packed it up and been like, Toronto played a good game. We're going to close it down. And so it felt like a finals preview in the sense of the intensity of the game, the way the guys cared. And I do believe on the West side of things, the Warriors will be in the finals. It is my prediction. I love Toronto.
Yeah.
Love how Toronto is playing. We talk about this so often in some of those top teams in the East. The depth of Toronto continues to show to me.
Yes.
And this core is a team that got playoff experience. Now you see some of these young guys. Like, look at Pascal Siakam. He is balling out this season. Yeah. He's
definitely
got a ton
one of the
of confidence.
most improved in the NBA this year.
Without a doubt. But they have a lot of options. And I think Nick Nurse has done a good job of just flawlessly stepping in, implementing some of the offensive schemes that we saw last season under Dwayne Casey, how well they played. And they've got a confidence, they've got a looseness. Kawhi Leonard is the guy that we expected him to see. I think he'll continue to improve as the season goes on, but I think the most underrated part of that trade was Danny Green. I mean, to me...
Yeah, let's throw him in. To me, it reminded me of when the Cavs made the trade and they threw in J.R. Smith. Yeah. And ultimately, J.R. became very important.
And he was the game changer.
Yes.
And so I think you're starting to see the pieces of Toronto that will really take them to another level in the Eastern Conference, which is why they have the best record at this point.
Exactly. Well, I mean, you know, the Raptors already sent a message about what they expect from this season when they fired Dwayne Casey. Yeah. They fired Dwayne Casey so they can get over the hump, get to the Eastern Conference Finals, and eventually into the NBA Finals with the roster that they have. Now, I will say this, of the teams that we thought would be contenders in the Eastern Conference, they're the one that's actually playing like it. Like the 76ers have been hot and cold. Now they're better of late with Jimmy Butler. Right. The Boston Celtics have not looked like the team that we thought they were coming into this season. But I think last night's game was a little bit of a litmus test for the Raptors to show to themselves, okay, we need to play like a team at the top of our conference. Golden State was the perfect measuring stick. Even though they don't have Draymond Green and Steph Curry, they're still the Golden State Warriors, and they still have the second best player in the world who showed out last night. I mean, I think that's his third game this season with 40 points or more. And so that's impressive to see in a closely contested game. The Toronto Raptors find themselves on the winning side of things.
Yeah, there's a few message points that I took from this game. Outstanding regular season game, above the intensity that you would normally see late in November in the NBA. The NBA, actually, the intensity in the games thus far far exceeds any other year that I can ever remember. I know people say, oh, the Warriors, they're going to win, but it has not hurt the overall intensity. Nick Nurse at the end of the game, rookie coach. Kevin Durant's got the ball. It's less than 10 seconds. You're up by 3. You have to be able to foul, especially when I'm trying to teach Jenna all these little intricacies of sports. These are certain things, Jenna. I want you to watch for these certain things. When they happen, Jenna, you'll be able to come on there and sound like, man, an expert. Jenna's like, hey, they should have fouled him, Cris. You told me that. And I was like, yeah, Jenna, the rookie coach. So I'm going to watch.
Whole conversation with
I want to be able to watch how this goes in game-winning situations. I'm sure he will improve, but that was something I watched. And I also believe, even in the loss, Golden State and what Kevin Durant has done before Steph Curry comes back on Saturday, him scoring over 40 points 3 games in a row, I think it's going to help squash some of that stuff with Draymond. Because Draymond being injured and the overall value, I just believe it helps send a message to the rest of the Warriors that they will be able to use that momentum. I don't know if this is a finals matchup. I know teams in the East have struggled, but when you get in the 7-game series, if it goes that with the Celtics, they do not have an answer for Kyrie Irving. So, yes, right now Toronto is the best team in the East. I don't know who the Celtics are going to be in 4 months, but Kyrie Irving, I don't think they're going to have an answer for him no matter when that is.
Before we even talk about the Celtics, I would toss the Milwaukee Bucks, because if I'm not predicting Toronto to be in there, I would put Giannis in the Bucks, given the fact that they have got a whole lot of depth as well. But to your point about Nick Nurse, I think that's excellent, because Dwayne Casey, and I'm a huge fan of Dwayne Casey and love everything he did, the one knock on him was his in-game coaching, in-game adjustments, how he handled things throughout the course of the playoffs. So it will be interesting to see the development of Nick Nurse and how he starts to handle that.
If you're the Golden State Warriors, you got the second best player in the league on your team. He puts up 51 and you still can't win. It's obvious something's missing. Well, that something is Steph Curry. He does come back Saturday against Detroit. Has he been the thing that's going to sort of make this all work again for the Warriors? Like I said, 4-6 over the last 10. Does he solve all the little skirmishes and all the blemishes and all the problems his team has?
He doesn't solve everything, but he's a hell of a deodorant. If they got a funk, he got
WD-40. He fixes everything, makes them all run.
When you put this roster together with 5 All-Stars, anytime you don't have an all-star, the team is going to suffer, because you can't have 5 all-stars and have a significant bench. Andre Iguodala, and he's only a shell of himself. He's not a starter right now. You need to take him out of that starting lineup when you get Steph back in there, get Draymond back in there. Yes, it's not only Steph, it's the totality. Draymond and their passing, their ball movement, Kevin Durant and what he's doing. He picked up where Steph was the MVP candidate. KD just picked up right where Steph, so they're going to be problems starting on Saturday night with Steph coming back.
And with Golden State, the beauty of the way in which they play is the free-flowing offense, how much they space the floor, balance the floor. That's what Steph does, because he is a threat as soon as he steps across half court. So he not only changes everything with his ability to facilitate how he plays, but he changes the complexion of the entire offense. I think this is the best thing for the Golden State Warriors, because the one concern about them is their depth, and some of these newer they're getting a ton of experience.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we're getting a chance to see, whether it's Looney, whether it's Damian Jones, whether it's Quinn Cook. Like, these guys need this type of game experience, and they need the game experience in tight games and games that matter. Toronto Raptors, I tell you, Air Canada Center is rocking. The playoff experience comes from that whole atmosphere. So whether or not the Golden State Warriors may look at it like a game that doesn't matter, it does impact. But it does impact the way some of those young guys feel.
Well, if the Warriors are stacked and everyone's back out there playing, how big is the gap between the Warriors and the Raptors team from what you saw last night?
Well, I think there's still a significant gap, and we know that the Golden State Warriors don't necessarily have the focus game in, game out in the regular season. Steve Kerr has to find creative ways of keeping his team engaged. We saw Draymond Green with the whiteboard on the bench last year drawing up stuff, and that was Steve Kerr's way of trying to keep everybody involved and just being creative. They know that they're a supremely talented team. And so it's hard to have that focus over the course of an 82-game regular season, because the regular season's a grind. This team knows they're going to be judged based on what they do in the postseason, and it's still a long ways off from right now. So I think that's one of the challenges, as well as the injuries that they're faced with.
And it matters that Kevin Durant is putting up these type of numbers. To your point, how he's playing, given the skirmish with Draymond Green, which I think will blow over and they'll be able to find and get themselves together. I think the fact that for Kevin Durant, for his psyche, he needed games like these in a row and in a string.
I do believe Toronto will be there in the end. First and third quarter efficiency, best in the NBA. I believe the rookie coach will only get better. And let's just realize, Kawhi's only played with these guys for 20-something games, but I'm glad we squashed all those rumors about bad Kawhi. Now he's back out there playing ball, just as quiet as he ever was before.
And we didn't even bring up Kyle Lowry.
Yes.
Like, so now the pressure is relieved from Kyle Lowry and his responsibility, but he still hit a huge three from the corner to help them win that. He's still doing little things like getting steals. So I think Toronto is going to be someone who can give them a fight. But, yeah, I think the gap is still very
I mean, listen, it was an overtime game, and no Draymond, no Steph Curry, no Boogie Cousins. It's still it's still a significant gap once we come playoff time.
All right, Sarah, we'll see you a little bit later on in the show. Got to take a break coming up. Can the Cowboys contend for the Super Bowl after taking down the Saints? We're not being dramatic. Yeah, we are. That's next on First Things First. On Sunday, it is a Fox NFL doubleheader, starting with the Bears taking on the Barkley. Saquon Barkley and the Giants. Then it's America's Game of the Week. Kirk Cousins and the Vikings battle Tom Brady and the Patriots. It is all on Fox. Send the Fox Sports app. Check your local listings, CC.
It's going down on Fox on Sunday. Going down.
It's going
brunch at ABC Kitchen, then watching some football.
That's a solid game plan
Back
right
to the
there,
game last night. Saints in Dallas to face a team many thought would need a miracle. First quarter, Dallas strikes first. Dak Prescott finds Zeke for the touchdown. Cowboys up 7. They take a 10-0 lead into the second. Saints now driving. Jalen Smith taking down Alvin Kamara at the 1. New Orleans is going for it. DeMarcus Lawrence, he said this week, it's going to be grit, and he had it. He and Tyrone Crawford take down Kamara on 4th down. Big stop by them. But the Saints would crawl back into it as Drew Brees finds Keith Kirkwood in the end zone. That cut to 13-10. Saints now driving for the win. Looks like a lock. It's Drew Brees, but what? Throws the brutal interception. Cowboys win 13-10, their 4th win in a row. Here's their team owner, Jerry Jones, on the Cowboys' big win.
You win something like this against a team that well coached, those kind of players, caliber a team like that, and you know you've done it. Your mirror knows you've done it. You change. This is a changer in here. These guys they're different cats now as they go forward.
All right, CC, talk to us about what can beating the Saints do for a team like the Cowboys moving forward?
I do remember a game similar to this. I don't know if this team is like a team that I was on, but that 1998 season where we ended up finishing the regular season 15-1, came up short NFC Championship in overtime to the Falcons. But, man, we had a game on Monday night against Brett Favre in Lambeau Field, and Randy Moss destroyed them. And I think the overall confidence, and it was in the rain, it was a message game, defense played well. It was the type of game that gives especially younger players, not veteran players, but younger players, a lot of confidence on what they can potentially do. So, yes, this could be a springboard into Dallas being in the playoffs and being a real threat. Taking that defense, taking that running game on the road in the playoffs, yes. But I'm going to tell you what, this is a message. If nothing else, if it's not a message to NFL that you can win with defense, it's a message to the NFC East. Over the next several years, this is what you're going to be seeing in Dallas. We know we talk about their quarterback, Dak. We know we talk about Ezekiel Elliott, great running back. But that defense, with the number of young players that they got playing on there, Canty, they sent a message to me, hey, keep some eyes on us because, man, how many young players they got playing on that defense, Canty?
The average age of the Cowboys defense last night was 25 years old, and 5 of the 7 snap leaders on that defense were under the age of 23. So that's how impressive it is to see those young guys really getting after it, and CC hit the nail on the head. Confidence comes from demonstrated performance, and they proved that to themselves.
Say that again.
Confidence comes from demonstrated performance. If you actually been on the field and you did it, then you feel like you can replicate it, and that's important.
Because during the week they were talking about it.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, the coach gave them a speech, and they actually visualized it and played it out, and we saw it last night.
And you know what? The one thing that I was looking for, I knew that they would show up in the first couple of series, but I wanted to see them sustain that intensity throughout the whole game, the full 60 minutes, and they did that, CC. It wasn't perfect. There were some mistakes, but that's to be expected when you're dealing with a young team. But overall, they were able to make enough plays, so I think they proved to themselves that they are who they think they are. And what Jason Garrett has been preaching all week, I think this is something that this team will be able to build on come the late December and on into the postseason in January.
And what do we always say? You'd rather have momentum later in the season than earlier in the season, right? They spent the first 5-6 games figuring it out, what they're going to do, how they're going to work. They're not like every other offense. Dak Prescott's not like any other quarterback in the NFL. They figured out that their defense was going to carry them. Now it also, how important is it that they have this momentum now over the last couple games as they swing forward and they have still more NFC East?
Oh, impressive winning streak. I mean, their season could have been over now. Those 4 games that they won, especially those 2 games on the road where they hadn't won a game, how they've played, the style for which they're going to play. This reminds me a lot of Carolina Panthers with Ron Rivera and Cam Newton. Man, they played offense a lot different than other teams. They wanted to be physical and play good defense. The thing that Cam and them kept doing was forget what other teams are doing. We're going to keep doing and winning the way Carolina. If Dallas can do that, overall physicality, that youth, that speed on that defense, collapsing the pocket, this is something I know. And I talk to the people at Park Avenue with the NFL office quite often. And I don't think no more rule changes. They can't make it no easier on the quarterback. And the way that they play defense and the way they get after the quarterback, that will always be in style. So it was great to see. I do believe they can duplicate it. And, man, with a young group like you mentioned and everything, I believe there can be some tremendous carryover from the confidence that I saw.
It's all about finding your formula for success, both from an individual standpoint, but then collectively as a team. If you figure out how to have success and you know exactly what that entails, then it makes it easier for you to replicate it. And so young players are always trying to find that. CC, we talk about it all the time. Football players are creatures of habit. There's a reason that you're a creature of habit. You're trying to figure out how you can continue to replicate the success that you've had in the past. So you stick to those same routines, not just in terms of how you prepare mentally to get ready for the game and physically with practice, but also making sure from what Jason Garrett wants to do with the game planning and play calling perspective, you're comfortable with all of those things. I think the Dallas Cowboys found something last night in that performance, especially on the defensive side.
And I hope Rod Marinelli and Chris Richards, the new passing game coordinator, defensive back coach, he came over from Pete Carroll in them years in Seattle, doing a great job with their secondary. So if they can continue to be as aggressive as they were. Now, they weren't necessarily blitzing the quarterback an awful lot, but when they needed to, they came up with key plays, blitzing a guy off the slot, sending an extra linebacker. Their linebacker play, what is good as linebacker play that I've seen in this league in a long, long time, made me resemble a couple different groups of linebackers. Urlacher, he went into the Hall of Fame this year. Him and Bridge, what they used to be able to do. And my man Ray Lewis, him and Bart Scott. Bart talking all that trash. Bart used to play some hell of a football. So they used to fly around. So seeing them play like that was exciting.
And something they did mention briefly in the broadcast, they pressed the pocket a little bit and made Drew Brees uncomfortable, that he couldn't balance himself, and so his accuracy was off. Sort of similar to the game plan you probably used a little bit going up against Tom Brady in the Super Bowl?
No, that's the exact same game plan. You use the front four to get after the quarterback, and you make sure that you got 7 guys in coverage, because if you do have to add additional rushers to put pressure on the quarterback, you're going to sell out the guys on the back end. And Drew Brees and Tom Brady, they both seen a lot of football. So they got all the answers when defensive coordinators are trying to come up with those exotic pressures. That's why it's so important to be able to get after them with your front four, particularly the guys on the interior, being able to push that pocket and make the quarterback get off the spot. That's exactly what we saw the Dallas Cowboys defensive line do last night. They had 6 total quarterback hits, 2 quarterback sacks. Now, Randy Gregory owes DeMarcus Lawrence some money because that offsides penalty cost him a strip sack. And DeMarcus Lawrence is in a contract year. He's trying to get paid. Come on, Randy Gregory, you got to do better. But the Dallas Cowboys defensive line as a whole, they did the job last night. Because if you're going to beat the Saints and the offense led by Drew Brees, you're going to have to put pressure on the quarterback with 4. And I think they did as good a job as any defense has done on Drew Brees this entire season.
And in the process, they picked up their win, and now they are true contenders in the NFC. Got to take a break. Coming up, are Phillip Rivers and the Chargers about to make it 2 straight losses for Big Ben and the Steelers? That is next. This is First Things First. Back here, first things first, we are going viral. Sporting KC was eliminated by Portland in the MLS Cup playoffs last night, but they had some special guests in the house, including Travis Kelce, Kareem Hunt, Patty Mahomes, and a whole bunch of Chiefs, and they got into the spirit. Take a look.
I believe that
That is tremendous. I mean, you're new here.
Right there.
Nick,
like
CC, and I start every single show like that. It gets annoying for some of our staff and our audience members, but for the most part, I mean, every show, it's just we hype it up so much. It's adorable. I get it started, and CC and Nick are back there, like, so cute. They're cute. It's what's happening.
Kansas City, out amongst the people.
Good stuff.
Very, very
They were
nice.
getting turned. You got to put a T at the end of that one.
Okay,
That was turnt.
okay.
Yeah,
All right.
they were having
This is a new one for me. I'm going to
Turnt is a new one for you? Turnt.
Turned. That would, okay.
Turn.
I'm learning. They got turned.
Like
They
turned
turned
up.
Oh, turned up. Yeah, see, I need the context.
Kevin Hart.
We ain't got to add.
That's a Kevin Hart.
There you go.
Turned
Turned.
up. Time for stories to start your morning every day.
Slowly but
Kenny.
surely, CC, we'll bring her along.
Kenny, every day I learn. Cowboys defense had an impressive night. They held the Saints to less than 200 yards in offense.
Co-host over there, a little different angle on some stuff. More woke over there.
Yeah, he is. Kenny, how impressed were you with Dallas last night?
I was really impressed with the Cowboys because they played complementary football. I mean, that's the biggest thing for this team. We know the formula for success on offense, but what their defense has been able to consistently do during the season, I just feel like last night was their offense holding up their end of the bargain. That's exactly what we saw from Zeke and Dak Prescott.
No greater example when they get the fourth down stop. That offense, they go 97 yards. That right there was a critical exchange. If they can continue to do those things to gain some confidence off this, man, the Dallas Cowboys are a dangerous team. Putting pressure on the quarterback with only 4, you're going to be able to defend all the quarterbacks in the NFL.
Sticking with last night's game, Zeke had a solid night, 136 yards from scrimmage, scored the Cowboys' only touchdown. See, what'd you make of Zeke's night?
It wasn't the big numbers. It wasn't, 5-6 yards per carry, but the grunt work and the identity, realizing that it's about how we're going to win. He's got to be able to touch the ball. Yeah. Over 130 yards in total offense, better receiver out of the backfield than people estimated when he came out of Ohio State. So he has to be the workhorse for this offense to be able to ease that burden. Their passing game is improving, but if they're going to win, Ezekiel Elliott's going to have a lot to do with it.
And I think Zeke had a lot to do with an improved Dak Prescott that we saw last night. I still don't like the fact that he took 7 sacks, but some of the throws that we saw him make, those are big-time throws. The double move to Amari Cooper early in the first half, the move, the deep out to Michael Gallup from the pocket, those are impressive throws to see Dak Prescott be able to push the ball down the field outside of the numbers. But I think that's attributed to Zeke taking pressure off of Dak Prescott.
The Patriots are hosting the Vikings on Sunday. Sure, the Pats are 8-3, and Minnesota is just 6-4-1. But don't tell Bill Belichick he had high praise for Minnesota, saying they're even better than they were last year. CC, what's the key to Brady and the Patriots taking down the Vikings?
Well, I think Sony Michel, how healthy is he going to be? You can look for him and Rob Gronkowski. We talked about it earlier, Jenna. Very few times that they've been in the lineup, but when they're in the lineup, they are hard to deal with. You're going to see Josh Gordon even get more integrated, more in sync with Brady. So I look for him to have a big game in the next couple weeks because they've been missing out on each other just a little bit. So their passing game, I believe, off that running attack will be at high level on Sunday night, Cris.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on that one, CC. And I guess the key matchup for this game is how is that Patriots offensive line going to handle the defensive front of the Vikings in the run game? Because Tom Brady, he's seen how deadly he can be when he has that balance on the offensive side of the ball.
Yes.
When you got a running game that can give that type of quarterback 200 yards on the ground, it's going to make it tough to slow down the Pats. So I'm interested to see how Dante Scarnecchia gets his group of guys up front to be able to deal with that Minnesota Vikings defensive line.
All right, big matchup between two of the league's rising stars. You got Baker Mayfield and the Browns. They're heading to Houston to face Deshaun Watson and the Texans. Houston trying to make it 9 wins in a row. Here is Deshaun Watson on facing off against Baker.
Playmaker playing very well. That's the reason why you know, they're having a lot of success because he's leading that team, he's leading the organization, and he's going to have a bright, you know, future, bright career, you know, win a lot of games, win some championships, and do a lot of things for himself and that organization.
Deshaun's an incredible quarterback, incredible athlete, great leader, played against him in the playoffs in 2015. Just from somebody that's seen it in person, you can see all this coming, the success he's had, and it's been fun to watch. He's a good guy, so he's playing at a very high level, a huge reason why they've won 8 games in a row. And so it's always great to play great competition, and you always look forward to that.
These are 2 great quarterbacks. These are 2 very different quarterbacks. Which of these 2 quarterbacks, CC, would you rather start and build your team around, Baker or Deshaun?
Jenna, now that's a tough question. It's both of them. If I got a franchise, the only thing would be better if my brother had a franchise, and then we could have 2 franchises, because both of them you can move into your future, depending on what you want to do. If you want to be able to throw the ball around, if you want to be able to run some RPOs, if you want a guy that's dynamic as far as a leader in the locker room, it's really hard to choose between them. I can make a case for both of these guys, and the reason why I want to be able to surround the franchise. Number one, with Baker, I believe, and we talked about it in the draft process, he's got a photographic memory. So he's undersized like we saw with Drew Brees last night, but he can make all the throws that you want. He's a dynamic personality. I believe that he is already knowing how to play in the pocket in the NFL. So you're going to build. He is the type of guy that if you're trying to change a franchise that has the type of history that Cleveland have, that's the type of guy that you want there. Now, if I'm in Houston, Houston's been around a little bit longer than Cleveland, of course, but they have some other established stars, J.J. Watt and Clowney on the defense side. So I could see how both of these guys and what they're doing for their franchises, they are a good fit moving forward. Bill O'Brien, he wants to play action. They haven't given him the type of support with a running game that the play action can be effective. So you see both of these kids developing. It's not stable in Cleveland, so I believe that Baker is going to thrive. They're going to get a coach. Him and that coach will move forward. And Deshaun Watson, Houston is more than pleased with what they've gotten out of him, even after he suffered from that bad knee injury that he had when he had all that success in his rookie year.
Well, all you need to know about these 2 quarterbacks is that we've seen the test cases with both of these respective franchises when they don't have that guy at the helm. We saw it last year with Houston missing Deshaun Watson when he went down with the knee injury. That was a completely different offense. They went from averaging over 30 points a game to scoring 13 points a game. So you see how important he is to that team's success. And then, of course, with Baker Mayfield leading this team to the record that they have this year, they've got more wins this season than the last 2 years combined. So, I mean, you know all you need to know based on what we've seen in the results on the field. Now, in terms of who's the better prospect or who's the better franchise quarterback, I mean, you're right. You can make a case for both of those guys. I will say this. Both of them can make all the throws in the NFL, both from the pocket and on the move. They can throw the ball with accuracy. They can stretch the field, challenge all 3 levels of the defense.
Both big arms.
Both big arms. So I look at that and I say, you know what? It's pretty much a wash. Deshaun Watson is the better athlete, so I trust him more with his mobility. But Baker Mayfield, he's going to be available. Deshaun Watson has had some injury concerns in the past.
Yes, and you make some great points there. Canty and I, both of us, been blessed with size. This NFL, I don't care how much they change the rule.
Thank you for not including me.
It's going to be about no. You're jacked. It's about size. So for me, I'm gonna always typically go with the bigger guy. There's a reason why we only have a couple quarterbacks, that being Russell, that being Drew Brees, and Baker now at that 6-foot height. Now, if we're gonna go with ideal height, I'm gonna go with Deshaun. He's a better athlete. That would make the margin over him slightly. But those would be things that I would be looking at if I had to make that critical decision.
But do you worry that he's more susceptible because he's a better athlete, because he's more prone to running out of the pocket? Do you worry that he's more susceptible to getting hurt? I mean, I know he got hurt in practice last year, but it's still, I mean, it kept him out for, everything but 6 games.
I think all the quarterbacks, they can get hurt. Deshaun Watson is a pocket quarterback who is a good athlete and can run with the ball. It's not like every game I have to convince him, hey, I need you to stop running. I think he's just athletic. That's a bad offensive line. No running game, so he's trying to scramble to be able to make things. If you can see Russell Wilson, look at all the running he's done in Seattle. It's just a matter of how you can get your team across that victory line, and using your athleticism, that's what Deshaun is doing.
It's a fine line, CC, in terms of knowing when to try to extend the play and use your legs versus throwing the football away.
Yeah.
And that's why Bill O'Brien made it a point earlier in the season to tell Deshaun Watson the way that he was playing was not sustainable. That's how you end up having a partially collapsed lung. You can't continue to play like that. But from what we've seen of him lately, that's the style of football that you can win with, especially in this league at the quarterback position.
And next segment, we'll compare who's got better tattoos, although I can't read that font on there, but it's probably something witty. Moving on to Cam Newton. He and the Panthers have struggled recently, losing their last 3 games, a seemingly winnable game this weekend when they face the Bucs, although this is the same Bucs team which beat the Saints earlier this season. Cam knows that the bulk of the team's success starts and ends with him. Here he is on how he would assess his play this year.
Honestly, I feel like I'm playing the best football of my career. Straight up. And I just feel in control. There's no question marks. There's no my assuredness of every single play. I know exactly what I'm supposed to do. Not saying in pass. You know, it's coming from a person who had success in this league, and it's just. I don't want to sound, like that, but I know my worth. I know who I am. You know what I'm saying? And I really could care less what another person thinks. Wholeheartedly, like.
Would you say that that's different because of the guys you have around you, or because of Norv? Or
No,
just
that's
because
me.
of
That's
you?
all personal.
Okay.
That's all personal, and that comes with preparation. I feel like when somebody's at their best and facing me, and I'm at my best, we win. You know what I'm saying? And of course, these last couple of games we haven't had, the winnings to back it. But I give myself comfort knowing that, I still gotta be better. There's room for me to improve, but I feel like I'm playing the best football of my career right now.
CC, what do you make of what Cam had to say?
I'm with Cam. I've been knowing Cam for a long time. I've seen him do a lot of interviews, and sometimes he misses the mark. But he tried to give you a little insight. It's not reflecting what this team has done the last couple weeks, but he was being honest. And I heard Kitchens, the offensive coordinator in Cleveland, he said, man, I didn't know that it was breaking news when you start telling the truth. Cam Newton is playing the best football. And the hard thing with that is the guy's been MVP. So, man, the people just go straight to the numbers. But if you look at Norv Turner and how Norv Turner has changed his game, how he's reading things out. Cam gave us insight as far as the preparation. When someone says, now I'm prepared for everything, you got to read into that there was a time where he wasn't prepared. So he even made himself vulnerable to say, man, there were times that even I played at a high level, I wasn't prepared to the level that I'm at now. So I appreciate the honesty. I appreciate, too, how he just looked inside of himself. It's not about who's running it. It's not about who I'm throwing to. It's not about the offensive line. As a person, as a professional athlete, right now, I'm at my all-time best, mentally and physically. So I thought it was very, very refreshing for one of the elite players we have in this league, one of the spokesperson, one of the guys who is part of the image of this league, for him to give us some football insight where he is and what he's done with Norv Turner, surrendering his ability. I tell my kids when I'm coaching, no matter where you are, I don't care who the coach is, every day you show up, surrender your ability to that coach and let that coach just mold you like a piece of clay. And ultimately, that's how you become the best. That's how you get everything out of your potential. That's how you get everything out of your ability. And that's what we're seeing with Cam Newton. It doesn't always equate to having the best season ever, but you can see. Look at the interview that he did after losing the Super Bowl. And look at the man who just spoke to us right there. Right there, that's a tremendous amount of growth. Happy to see it, and that's what you want. Baker Mayfield, we saw the kind of interviews he was doing this week. Wait till he gets 6, 7, 8 years in the league. I guarantee you we'll see other interviews alike Cam Newton did.
Agreed on all fronts, CC, and I think Cam Newton has matured both as a person and as a football player. Now, in hearing the soundbite and him talking about he's playing the best football that he's had at any point in his career, I would have agreed with that statement up until about 3 weeks ago. Before that, I mean, this was a team that was arguably one of the best teams in football. They were a top 5 team. That's how I was looking at them and how a lot of people were perceiving them. But since then, when you look at what happened on the road in Heinz Field, a tough environment, I mean, the Carolina Panthers came out in that opening drive and marched right down the field and scored a touchdown. Now, Pittsburgh happened to answer, but then let's talk about what happened from that point. Cam Newton threw a pick-6 to Vince Williams, and from there, the game got carried out of hand. And then you look at the Detroit Lions loss. They're able to score that late-game touchdown. He throws it to DJ Moore. Boom. That's a big-time play. Ron Rivera makes the decision to go for 2 because Graham Gano did not have a good day kicking the football. And guess what? Cam Newton has an errant throw to Jarius Wright. Doesn't give his receiver a chance. That's a throw that he's got to hit in that situation. Okay, we look at the Seattle Seahawks.
Let's stop right there for a second before we get to Seattle. The old Cam Newton wouldn't have blamed himself. He would have done something else. Maybe we call a better play. Maybe the guy runs a better route. The Cam Newton that did that interview after the Super Bowl, I know he says something different. But Cam Newton, you know what he said? That's my fault.
That's his fault.
That's my bad. So sometimes when you're training and you're trying to reach that elite level, it's not manifest in your play. But you know, from a mind standpoint, I'm more ready than ever. I'm in great physical shape. And ultimately, it's going to transition into all aspects. So I do respect what you're saying, and in Seattle.
Yeah, and in Seattle coming out in their opening possession of the second half, throwing an interception, trying to target his tight end in the red zone in double coverage. That's just a mistake. He shouldn't go there with the football. And then Seattle goes on to score on their next 4 possessions in that half and win that game. So I'm looking at those plays, and I'm saying to myself, if Cam Newton doesn't execute and he makes those mistakes in those situations, the Carolina Panthers are not going to have a shot to go where they want to go. I mean, a month ago, you would lock them in at the #1 wild card in the NFC. Now they're in a dogfight with the Minnesota Vikings and the Seattle Seahawks. And the Seattle Seahawks have the head-to-head tiebreaker because they won on the road last week. So I'm looking at those situations and saying, if the Carolina Panthers are going to go to the postseason, it's got to be led by Cam Newton. And he can't make those mistakes in the critical junctures in the game.
But we saw a guy up there on the podium who's clearly more confident in himself than maybe years past. He kind of poo-pooed it when someone asked if that had anything to do with Norv. Do you think that maybe somehow that's helped him be more confident, cut down on the inconsistency at all in his game?
Norv is a great coach. And what you see is Cam's fundamentals. His overall passing percentage is way, way up. So a lot of times the reason why, in talking to Drew Brees earlier in the season, I asked him, Drew, how do you get more accurate as a quarterback when you get older? He said, Chris, you got to know where everyone is. So the more information you have, the more stuff you can retain, the more that you can anticipate not only where the bad spots are, where you're weak in protection, but where you need to get the ball out to people. So we have seen Cam be able to do that. So this is what I saw in this NFL. And it's week in, week out. It's year in, year out. Man, this is a lot of talent. And guys will humiliate you. Drew Brees is playing the best football he ever played. Last night, he looked like he shouldn't have been an NFL quarterback. That's what they do. So I got to have some understanding of what this league does to you. Cam Newton, up until the last couple weeks, absent of those mistakes, he was playing just like Drew Brees was playing. So this is what this league will do. So not only on the field, sometimes your results are off the field. And what I'm hearing from Cam, what I'm seeing from Cam, it's all winning football. And that's what you want your franchise quarterback to be. You want him to be, hey, man, we lost that game. The coach went for it. I didn't back up his decision, but that's based on me. It's not on the offensive coordinator. It's not on the wide receiver who can run a better route, which we see that with another veteran quarterback who has Super Bowl experience. We want young quarterbacks to be able to take notes from Cam, what he's done. And he's surrendered his talent. We see him. You got to win these press conferences. If you're going to be a face of the league, if you're going to be doing commercials, if you're going to be doing it, you got to win those press conferences. And that was a major, major win. Cam Newton. If you like football, if you like human development, seeing Cam do that right there, it's a breath of fresh air.
That's well said. All right, got to take a break. Coming up, let's talk some basketball. Are the Lakers making the same mistakes as the Cavaliers? We'll explain and hear it from LeBron next on First Things First. FS1 is your destination for the day's best sports shows. Tune in for the biggest personalities on the biggest stories. I know I say this every day. This is the truth. We've got a lot of fun topics up and down. We start at 6:30 a.m. Eastern with First Things First. Keep watching right down the line, Monday through Friday on FS1. What's wrong, C?
Oh, I'm all good, Jenna. Jenna doing Jenna things.
That's what she does. Sarah Kustok back with us, and we're going viral. Check out Carmelo Anthony working out and staying in shape at Lifetime Fitness here in New York City. See, what do you think? Does Melo still have a comeback?
First of all, Jenna, you know colors now, okay? And as you're working out, you can't wear white workout gear. It makes you look a little fat. All right? Remember he had the hoodie on, the dark hoodie?
Yeah.
You can't wear white, bruh. All right? You ain't got no great body. No way. You can't do white, man. You can't.
Do white shoes. White shoes make you look quicker.
And socks.
And then
There you
black
go.
outfit makes you look slender.
Thank you.
Got to coordinate.
At least he's trying to coordinate. Got the mushroom belt.
Christine, outfit that guy. He got a lot of money.
Melo look like
Get
he on his way to the big three.
Yeah, do something slimming on.
That's where he does.
I think that's where we at, man.
Gustav, we're talking some Lakers facing the Pacers last night. Let's get to the game. Lakers up 1 in the 4th. LeBron James hits the three-pointer. Next play, LeBron gets the layup and the foul, hits the free throw, 3 points the old-fashioned way. A little more than 2 minutes to go. LeBron, fall-away, jumper. And to finish off the amazing fourth quarter, LeBron, turnaround, jumper. What? He'd finish the night with 38 points, 12 in the last 5 minutes. Lakers go on to win 104-96. Here is LeBron James on his late game approach.
That's the challenging things I've been, kind of battling with, since the season has started. On how much do I, defer and allow, some of our young guys to kind of try to figure out, and how much do I try to take over games. So, I think tonight was one of those instances where, they looked at me and they wanted me to close the game, and I just tried to make plays, both offensively and defensively. Make they cut it to a one-point game, and then after that we got defensive stops, and I was able to make some plays offensively.
All right, Sarah, it's almost redundant to keep asking you this, but how impressive was LeBron James?
It was impressive. I think the big stat, which you said, Jenna, we saw at the bottom of the screen, the 12 points in the final 5 minutes. And we know that he's a closer, and he talked about the balance. When does he need to take over? When does he make sure to get other guys involved? For the Lakers, that's a work in progress. But they have been playing better. I think that it has helped them, not necessarily that Rajon Rondo has been out, but the fact that they've played at a slower pace. I think that benefits LeBron a little bit more, and I think some of these players are figuring out how to play at that pace. I think it's why it's their defense has been improved because of that. But LeBron has been, this is what we expect out of him. So to say impressed, for better or worse, this is the type of performance you want to see out of him. I think what was most impressive to me was that first quarter, the start of the game.
Yes.
So how he closed out, the ball in his hands, you expect him to do a lot of isolation, take over. There was body movement, there was ball movement, there was a lot of sharing and unselfish play, and that's when Magic makes those comments about how they're going to play, that was a much better showing of the offense.
Yeah, and in covering the NBA, do you think that first quarter had anything to do with what was going on the game before that in Toronto when KD going off him and Kawhi? Because you're around NBA, you cover a team on a regular basis. Most of the games, the early games, they're watching. They're watching those games if they're on the late. So you think LeBron, because he got off to a really aggressive start.
I think that plays a factor.
Okay.
I think LeBron's start was because he had 14 points against Denver, and they lost, and the team had. I think you tag those two things together, and LeBron came out with the level of focus that we often see when he knows he's ready to be efficient, he's ready to make a statement, and to me, I think both of those things were in play.
Yeah, the start that they got out to was impressive, seeing them be able to put up a 38-point quarter against the Pacers, but then they gave it all back, and I think that's in part because LeBron was trying to get other guys involved in that second and third quarter, and I think toward the end of the game, he realized, okay, this is a game where they're looking to me to close the show. This is not one of those where I can facilitate everybody else's greatness, kind of like what CC does here every morning. It wasn't one of those types of games. He needed to go out there and be a Aroldis Chapman and close the show. That's exactly what he did last night. It's not unusual for us to see a little bit of a learning curve for LeBron when he's trying to get acclimated to a new team. We've seen those teams struggle the first half of that respective season that he's come in. But with this Lakers team, I think there's a little added pressure just because there's so many young guys, Brandon Ingram and Hard and Ball. There are a lot of young guys that are trying to figure out who they are as players, let alone playing with the best player in the world. So I think this is a work in progress. But with LeBron James, you're always going to give yourself a chance to win night in, night out.
Without a doubt. And I think to your point with that, the team has been inconsistent, but young players are often inconsistent. I mean, look at Josh Hart. Josh Hart finally looked back to himself. I think he was having some ankle issues, so he he's getting healthier again. But you're going to get inconsistencies individually from players as they try to figure it out with LeBron. And LeBron was even asked after the game, do you think about that? He said, I'm always thinking about that. I'm always thinking about how to best get guys involved. So I think it's an acclimation process on both sides. I thought Jenna's the facilitator that makes everyone better.
She is, but I don't want to steal anyone's thunder, so I just sit back and let everyone else have the glory. And then Nick shows up and feels like it's him. Hey, I have a question. Magic Johnson came out and made a couple interesting comments. Says he doesn't want the Lakers to overuse LeBron James the way he was overused in Cleveland, perhaps. Is Magic right? Are they playing with how much they're going to use LeBron James in this Lakers lineup?
Yeah, there's one reason why LeBron and Magic were able to get on the same page, and it had to do with what the team was going to look like and how they planned on using them. There had to be a lot of trust there. That's why Magic Johnson, when free agency opened, Magic Johnson was sitting outside of LeBron's house, ready to be able to have these types of conversations. So we don't have to have these conversations during the season. So even if the Lakers, through 20 games, hadn't won as many games, that's fine, as long as they stay on course, because what you don't want to do, and I used to tell Little League dads this, don't teach your son how to throw no curveball. What you want to get, a couple more wins? A couple more wins as a 12-year-old? How's that going to help him later on? Now, if the Lakers, when it's championship time, it is not 2018, not 2019, 2020 and 21. If LeBron James plays 38 minutes, how good will he be? Will he be the best player when it's time to be able to try to compete for a championship? So it's great to see that they're on the same page when they started free agency. This is what we're going to do moving forward. Yes, it's nice to see that you have that moving forward, because that's the only way the Lakers are going to be successful.
And his minutes are down. So I think, his usage rate, I think, is right around the eighth in the league. You're going to expect that. But his minutes are down.
He's averaging just under 35 a game.
Yeah, and I think they're utilizing him in the right way. And so I think that, give credit to Luke Walton. I think there's moments in games where you may have an instinct, I want to put him in. I want to put him in to win. But I think he's done a fine job. And the West is 1 through 14 is a difference of 5.5 games. So they are still in a good position. They're right in the mix, but I think they're playing it out with good balance.
Is this where you thought they'd be about 20 games in?
Especially with the way that they started. Yeah, I think they should feel good about where they're at. They're, 12-9 or right around there. So yes. I think they should feel very good about where they're at, especially given the fact that they've struggled a bit. And
missing Rondo, missing that time.
Yeah. Yep. And so they've got through some waves of some challenges. And, I think they should feel very solid about their position.
And, Sarah, you brought up Luke Walton. We got to give him a special shout-out, wearing the jacket in the tribute to Craig Sager, the NBA honoring Craig Sager last night and continuing into tonight.
So Craig Sager-inspired outfits, but Luke Walton did it right.
Tip of the cap to Luke Walton. He did it the right way.
Yeah, a number of Nerf had a great outfit on, had blue on with the black there in Toronto's game.
Fantastic.
Yeah, he was definitely fell asleep at the wheel. His dress was appropriate.
Does anyone have some good outfits for me tonight?
Yeah, we have something for you. Christine is going to outfit you after the show. You have a fitting at 9:45 over next door.
Bet you didn't even know that.
See how CC takes care of everything? That's why I say he's the facilitator.
You're right.
Sarah, it's so great to have you.
Sarah.
Hey,
thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Great insight. Coming up, are the Cowboys a Super Bowl contender after taking down the Saints? That's next. First things first.
We never forget.
I just let them know what I can do. I'm shot making like
never
LeBron.
Forget.
It's like a Cam Newton press conference. You're talking to your teammates.
Tonight on Fox, a Pac-12 champion will be crowned as number 17 Utah battles number 11 Washington. Then tomorrow, CC, number 6 Ohio State. Get excited. Number 21 Northwestern go toe-to-toe for the Big Ten title. Coverage begins at 7 Eastern tonight and tomorrow on Fox and the Fox Sports app.
Buckeyes, let's go.
Y'all need a big win. And there's going to have to be some style points, too.
We'll get to Phillip Rivers against Big Ben in a second, but first, Jordan Lewis comes up huge with the game-winning interception of Drew Brees.
Yeah, that's a big-time play. You saw a couple of plays before that. Dak Prescott had the strip sack, and they turned the ball over. But guess what? When you got pressure coming up from them defensive tackles in the middle of that defensive line, that makes the quarterback a little bit uncomfortable. He just so happened to throw the ball to Jordan Lewis in that situation. A play where he said he was trying to throw the ball away. He gave the Dallas Cowboys an opportunity to run out the rest of the clock.
None of them quarterbacks want to get hit. I don't care how good they are. You start putting pressure on them, they start getting rid of that football.
Everybody got a plan until they get hit in the mouth. Everybody.
Mike Tyson.
All right, to the NBA now. Kings-Clippers. De'Aaron Fox splits the defense, throws an alley-oop to Marvin Bagley. Look at those shoes. I'm sorry, I have to notice.
With the pink ones?
Look at the pink ones.
Oh, yeah, De'Aaron Fox, he can wear whatever he wants this year. After a not necessarily impressive rookie season coming over from Kentucky, after a freshman sensational season, De'Aaron's playing some basketball, and Sacramento. You can start to see the benefit of all those losses.
Pacers-Lakers. Darren Collison thinks he's got the easy layup. Lonzo Ball thinks otherwise, swats it off the backboard.
No easy buckets, Jenna. That's what Lonzo Ball told him right there. No easy buckets. And he found a way to contribute. Now, I'd like to see a little more than 2 points in 34 minutes played, but, you know, it is what it is. He'll figure it out.
Yeah, you don't want to be, I got 1 block, I only had 2 points. No, that's not the stat sheet, but good hustle.
All right, finally, Warriors-Raptors. KD with the ball, down 3, goes to the corner and knocks down a tough three-pointer.
Cece, how many guys can make that shot in that situation?
None of them will make it if you foul them. Hey, nurse, let's go. You got Jenna. I'm trying to teach her the game, late game tactics. You won't even foul. You're up by 3. You can't give KD or Clay a shot to tie it up. Foul them. Put them at the free throw line.
Not when you're playing as well as he is, too.
Y'all making me think Jenna's confused. Jenna confusing me. I'm trying to explain the game to her. Coach Nurse, you need to get better.
Time for your Week 13 edition of Take Your Pick. All right, guys, here we go. Phillip Rivers and the Chargers head to Pittsburgh to face Big Ben and the Steelers, both teams jockeying for their playoff position. Which quarterback would you rather have Sunday, Rivers or Big Ben? CC, take your pick.
After what Ben went through last week in Denver, all the interviews leading into his interviews during the week, I'm going to go with Big Ben. It's not that I don't think Phillip Rivers, but I just know in Los Angeles, it's not going to be the same temperature when they get on that plane, when they get off in Pittsburgh. It's going to be about 30 degrees. Pittsburgh Steelers, Ben, and that they rebound from this type of controversy, in-house little stuff. We've seen this before, Chris.
We have seen this before, but it's been a couple of weeks that the Pittsburgh Steelers have played sloppy football, particularly Ben Roethlisberger. So if you ask me to take my pick, Jenna, I'm going to go with the quarterback that doesn't throw the ball to the other team. Ben Roethlisberger, 5 interceptions in the last 2 weeks. Put a little context on that. Phillip Rivers has only thrown 6 interceptions all season. So I'll take Phillip Rivers in this type of situation.
All right.
Just saying.
Moving on, 2 of the top young quarterbacks in the NFL take the field when the Browns visit the Texans. Deshaun Watson's got Houston on an 8-game win streak. Baker Mayfield has led the Browns to back-to-back wins for the first time in 4 years. Which quarterback would you rather have on Sunday, Baker or Watson? Kenny, start with you. You take your pick.
I'm going to take Deshaun Watson because Deshaun Watson ain't got to play against that Houston Texans defense. The defensive line with Whitney Merciless and Jadeveon Clowney and J.J. Watt. Baker Mayfield don't want them kind of problems, so I'll go with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, Baker don't want those type of problems, but if we're going to be the right type of law firm that represents all types of clients, we don't like to discriminate. So I'm just going to represent Baker. I like the way he came back off facing Hugh Jackson in the Bengals last week. I like the way he responded in the press conferences. He is the face of the Cleveland Browns. It's a tough task going against J.J. Watt and Clowney and them. But as a law firm, if we're going to have balance and we're not going to discriminate, we got to be able to represent all the clients. So I represent Baker Mayfield. I'll take Baker this Sunday.
That sound good, but I just feel like Deshaun Watson is working with a little more than Baker Mayfield.
Well, I'm hoping potentially we can settle out of court. I don't want a trial.
All right, Kirk Cousins and the Vikings travel to Foxborough to face Tom Brady and the Pats. Patriots 5-point favorites, but Bill Belichick says this season's Vikings are better than they were last year. So which offense is more potent? Brady's or Kirk Cousins, the Vikings or the Patriots?
I got to go with my cuz, because his ability to be able to get the ball outside. Now, will they get Kyle Rudolph finally involved? He hadn't had the big impact that they thought when they brought Kirk Cousins over, because his percentage throwing to the tight ends in Washington was a lot higher than what we're seeing there in Minnesota. Dalvin Cook happens to be that key. I know Sony Michel, he's going to be productive. Gronk is trying to get back into the swing of things, but I'm looking at Dalvin Cook and that offense being, that's who I'm going to take in this matchup.
Which quarterback has a greater degree of difficulty? You'd have to say that's Tom Brady. That ain't Kirk Cousins. The one thing thing that bothers me about this Vikings offense, though, CC, they don't have any balance, man. They're 30th in running the football.
That offensive line, yes.
And that doesn't translate into success this type of year, especially in Foxborough. So that's the one thing that bothers me. If you're a one-dimensional offense going up against Bill Belichick, even though they don't necessarily have the most talent on the defensive side of the ball, I feel like Bill Belichick can do some things to give Kirk Cousins some problems.
All right, last night the Cowboys defense shut down one of the most potent offenses in the NFL. Drew Brees had his fewest yards passing in a first half since joining the Saints in 2006. So which unit is more dangerous moving forward, the Saints offense or the Cowboys defense? Chris Canty, take your pick.
Well, Jenna, you know I'm a defensive guy, so I want to go with the defense. I want to trust the Dallas Cowboys, but I think the Saints have a real chance at having home field advantage, even though they dropped this game to the Cowboys. We'll see what happens to the Rams down the stretch. But if if the Saints are going to be in the Superdome for the entire playoffs, then I got to trust that Saints offense. They're explosive. It's a different offense when they're down there in New Orleans. I don't know if it's the gumbo or the hoodoo or whatever it is, but Drew Brees in that offense, they're special when they're in the dome.
Yeah, Jenna told me, Chris, don't overreact. I came in this morning, I was upset and everything. Man, the Saints, they blew an opportunity. Oh, man, they still could have come back and win with a good drive at the end. So I'm not going to overreact. Because in 12 games, not one game, which was last night, 12 games, they scored 40 6 times. All right, so the chance of doing that again compared to that emotion that Dallas played with, can Dallas, how many games in a row can they do that? I'm going with Drew Brees and that. Jenna, thank you for helping me. I'm not going to overreact. I'm going with the offense of the Saints.
Anytime. All right, we're going to end on the Big Ten championship, where the Ohio State Buckeyes take on the Northwestern Wildcats. You can catch that game tomorrow night at 7 Eastern on Fox. So who will win the Big Ten championship? Chris Canty, take your pick.
Well, I'm going to go with the Ohio State Buckeyes, CC. I mean, I know Northwestern has been a tough out this year. They gave Notre Dame a challenge. You know, they've played some closely contested games. But I just like the Ohio State Buckeyes. I like what Dwayne Haskins has been doing. He broke Drew Brees' Big Ten touchdown record last week. I mean, just really impressive against one of the best defenses in college football in the Michigan Wolverines. They hung a 50 spot on them. So, I mean, it's impressive to see what that young man has done and what that offense has evolved into as the season has progressed. Yeah,
it's hard for me not to be in love with my Buckeyes. I started talking to someone about the Buckeyes, and I'm going to the game. And since 1982, man, I have almost every year been able to watch the Buckeyes live and in person. So for me, I think the Buckeyes, from a talent standpoint, have superior talent. Now, Pat Fitzgerald does a tremendous job with Northwestern. Watch them play a very, very vanilla defense, trying to slow the Buckeyes down to create mistakes, and look for them to duplicate on the offensive side with their running back a lot what Purdue did, running the ball at the gut of the Buckeyes defense, and what Maryland did a couple weeks ago. Buckeyes, too much talent. Urban Meyer, this is going to be a special championship for him after all the controversy this season. I'm going with the Buckeyes.
Now, CC, they got to run up the score to give themselves a good chance to get into this college football playoff,
we need some style points.
Yeah,
absolutely. No, you can't just wear your normal blue jeans and everything. We need to style this one up.
Now, the good thing about it is they are playing after Oklahoma, West Virginia, so they'll know exactly what they need to do before that game kicks off.
I will just tell you that you look like 4-year-old little Chris Carter back in your house with your little baseball hat on, running your mouth off at your mom about what's going to happen and who's going to win what. That's what I saw for a little bit. You keep with your adorable self. It's working for you, CC.
It's my mama's fault.
It's your Buckeyes hat. Coming up, can Kirk Cousins lead the Vikings to an upset over the Pats next? This is First Things First. Back here on First Things First, Undisputed coming up at 9:30 sharp. Alex Curry is in for Jenny Taft. Alex, good morning to you guys. What are you talking about today on the show?
Good morning, Jenna, and happy Friday. And coming up on Undisputed, we'll be all over the Cowboys' big win. Are they now a team that can contend in the NFC? And did Drew Brees lose the MVP last night? Plus, James Harrison and Chris Broussard are in studio with us. Undisputed, coming up next. Jenna, back to you.
All right, Alex, thank you. We are going viral. Raptors super fan and perhaps the most famous person in Toronto, Drake, I was just talking about him, was courtside last night as they faced the Warriors. And after the game, his friend KD gave him the jersey off his back. Drake, explain it to me.
That's his boy. He grabbed that little little cutlet right there
Yeah,
when he pinched him and everything. They were going back and forth a little bit during the game.
Okay.
They do have a relationship
Yeah.
and everything. It's just a matter of respect. One of the greats in the rap game and one of the greats in the NBA.
Okay.
Yeah, KD was pulling up from where Drake was sitting at from the court, too. Unbelievable.
Drake had his mouth open.
Yeah, I ain't got a problem with Drake wanting the jersey, but I'm going to let the equipment managers wash that first, and then you can send it to me. I'm good with I don't need the sweaty jersey.
I was just going to say, this guy
I'm good on
went to
that.
his
I got
Sixers
Jimmy
a game.
Butler's shoes, his J's off his feet. They 14s and everything. Got them off his feet.
That's not.
I still got it. I got
that is literally what
I got some fan in me. I got some fan in me.
I'm a fan. I just,
I mean, if I hadn't have made it, that's what I would have been.
That's true.
I would have been like Nick Wright. But I got it.
Wow. You got a little more street cred
But I
than
got
Nick
it
Wright.
Back to the NFL.
A little more street
Saints
cred
and
and a gold
Dallas
jacket.
to face a team many thought would need a miracle to win. First quarter, Dallas striking first. Dak Prescott to Zeke Elliott for the touchdown. Cowboys up 7. They take a 10-0 lead into the second. Saints now driving. Jalen Smith takes down Alvin Kamara on the 1. New Orleans decides they're going for it. DeMarcus Lawrence and Tyrone Crawford have other plans. They could take Kamara down on 4th. Huge stop by the Cowboys D, but the Saints would crawl back into it. Breeze to Keith Kirkwood in the end zone. Cuts the lead. It's now 13-10 Dallas. Saints driving for the win. Saints feeling good, but Drew Brees with the tough interception right there. Brutal. Cowboys win 13-10. That's their 4th win in a row. Here's Dak Prescott after the game.
I mean, I think anytime you go out there and beat a team that's won 10 games straight, it's somewhat of a statement, but it's not anything that we can hang our hats on and say, yeah, we're pleased with doing.
The whole nation thought we were going to lose, and we came out, we shocked the world, and I mean, the crazy thing about it is we could have played so much better.
The battle is won, but the war just begins. The rest of the league, seeing how we're playing football together, and they're gonna want a piece of us.
We didn't really find a rhythm for pretty much the whole game. I mean, I guess we may have had one decent drive, but for the most part, I felt like we were just didn't really find a great rhythm with what we were doing. Yeah, I mean, so credit to them.
You win something like this against a team that well coached, those kind of players, caliber a team like that, and you know you've done it. Your mirror knows you've done it. You change. This is a changer in here. These guys they're different cats now as they go forward.
Cece, I want to go back to what Drew Brees said, and he felt like the Cowboys defense got him off his rhythm, right? He wasn't as accurate. He wasn't as comfortable. And that's what the game plan probably was for Dallas. Get in there, throw him off his rhythm, and see what you can do to the Saints offense if you do that.
Right. Styles make fights. I talked about Sugar Ray when he battled Hearns. One time, man, he decided, I ain't going to try to dance and everything. I'm going to show people my boxing skills and my toughness. And when you look at last night, what the Dallas Cowboys did, and the numbers were a sheer indicator of that. To be able to make Drew Brees get off rhythm, what do you have to do? Forget about just the point total. We know they only allowed 10 points. We know that's their season low, but their inability to be able to get this offense running, first and second down, time of possession, the way the Cowboys were able to play in sync. Canty, the way you talked about earlier, offense, defense, and special teams all being synced up, but this was a dominant performance. And it all started not only in the preparation. We heard DeMarcus Lawrence saying what the theme of the week was going to be, what they were going to try to do. Last night, Joe Buck and Troy gave us great insight into what the team was saying, with Jason Garrett speaking with the team the night before. The team said they had never heard him speak like that, and the type of electricity that flowed into the team carried over into last night's game. But this was a dominant performance by this defense, and you got to be able to give a lot of these players, and these are not a lot of household names, but warning to the NFL, warning to the NFC East. Canty, you brought it to my attention. Man, they got a lot of young stars going to be playing for a long, long time. The question is now, can they duplicate this? Can they continue that same amount of energy on that defensive side, which bled into that offense, which bled into them getting the win last night?
Well, last night's performance can only build the confidence for that young team, but especially that defensive side of the ball. I talked about it earlier. The average age of the Cowboys defense is 25 years old. So I think that's significant, because when those guys see what they're doing and the results based on how they've been trying to improve throughout the course of the season, when you're able to shut down one of the most explosive offenses in in football, I think you've proved to yourself that you can be really, really good. And there's really an opportunity for this team to legitimately go on a run.
Right,
they
you
really
think
can.
that's what Jerry Jones was talking about? As a young player, visually capturing that on film, it has a tendency sometimes to change you, especially young players.
Exactly. I think this could be a defining moment for this Cowboys team because there are a lot of young players on both sides of the ball, guys that are playing key roles. So I think having that kind of performance last night can only help them moving forward. But the one thing that I will say that's interesting about this game, coming into last night, we heard a lot of talk out of Dallas from Jerry Jones, and there was a lot made of what Jason Garrett said to his team on Wednesday night, and DeMarcus Lawrence saying we're going to choke them out. But let me say this. They backed up everything that they were talking about coming into this game. And there's very few times that you see that in professional sports, especially in the NFL, CC. So, you know, LaMarcus Lawrence, I think he did a good job of setting the agenda and the overall tone for his teammates. Because it's one thing when the owner and the head coach does it, but it's a completely different thing when it's coming from a peer, one of your best players, your defensive leader in DeMarcus Lawrence. So I think that that's something that's important to keep an eye on moving forward because the Dallas Cowboys team is going to be led by their defense, and it's all based on what those guys do up front.
No, it took them a couple weeks to figure out that's how we're going to win games. We're going to win with our defense. We're going to run the ball as much as we could, and then Dak's going to be there to fill in the missing pieces. How big of a statement was this that the Cowboys made to the rest of the NFL, that we're not just a team that's in a weak division, we're a team that can compete as contenders in the conference?
Yeah, I think it's not only a message from Dallas to the NFL, but it's a message from the NFL to all those explosive offense, Kansas City, the Rams, the Saints. Man, if you bring your defense, and defense travels in the playoffs. If you can put pressure at a minimum with 4 people, if you can put tight coverage, sometimes mixing in zone with man-to-man, if you can force people into turnovers, 3 and out. We hadn't seen that from Drew Brees and them going into this game. Yes, you can still win in this new NFL where all the rules are for the offense, all the rules are for the quarterback. So not only from this young team, was it a message to the NFC, but for the NFL. If you have a good defense, you can, because it's not the NBA. You don't have to win a series. It's not baseball. It's not hockey. You have to be able to win one game. And defense travels late in the season, November and December. Defense has proven that it travels in the playoffs. We just haven't seen, with these new rules and the overall productivity we've seen from the quarterbacks, is defense still capable of winning you a championship? So that's the part that Dallas Cowboys have to try to live up to. But in last night's game, it was a thrill to a lot of old school football heads and people wondering, man, what is this game going to? Is this the Big 12, an extension of the Big 12? It was refreshing to see because I saw 100 points a couple weeks ago, and I saw 23 last night. And I was just as thrilled to be able to see both types of football.
No, you're absolutely right. It was just as entertaining as that Rams-Chiefs match up we had on Monday Night Football. But I will say this, and you talk about playing good defense, and that's something that translates into success at this juncture in the National Football League season. The defense has to be a particular kind of defense, right? It's not just being able to be a good defense from a yardage perspective, but it's being able to be good in situations, right? Be good on third down. Be good in sudden change. Be good in the red zone. The Dallas Cowboys defense dominated in all of those phases against an offense that's typically good in all of those aspects. So I look at what Dallas did last night, and I said, that's impressive, especially when you had an offense that made the mistakes that the Dallas Cowboys offense did last night, because they weren't good in the red zone. They were 1 of 5 in the red zone offensively. They had a couple of turnovers, but the Dallas Cowboys defense didn't allow those turnovers to turn into points for the New Orleans Saints. I think that was probably something that's overlooked, but that's an important aspect of how that game played out last night.
What about from the other side with the Saints? I mean, in their 10-game win streak, they faced teams with good defenses. What weren't they able to do? Why was this Dallas defense so good that it was stifling for them, that Drew Brees just couldn't find any rhythm whatsoever?
There was a number of things, and it started right from the beginning. You could see that Drew Brees, he was not going to ever get comfortable in the pocket, because not only did DeMarcus Lawrence and Randy Gregory from the outside, were they there on a consistent basis, but their defensive tackles, which you pointed out, Canty, they dominated the line of scrimmage. And we have seen no whooping like we saw saw the whooping that you were a part of in that interior part. So anytime I look at a big football game and I look at someone trying to pull an upset, I remember interviewing Chris Canty. And he told me before, man, they were going to face the unbeatable, the best team ever in the history of the game. He said, see, we're going to check their oil. We're going to check it.
I remember.
We're going to check it right up through the middle. He said, I said, y'all going to win? He said, I don't know about that, but we're going to see if he can take a beating. And in that game, leading that pressure. And that's what I saw in last night's game, a variety of pressures. But that defense, they definitely made a statement.
And I'm glad you brought that up, CC, because that's exactly what happened last night with the Dallas Cowboys front. Malik Collins, Tyrone Crawford. I mean, that's similar to the formula we used against Tom Brady when we had Linval Joseph and Rocky Bernard on the interior, and then Tuck and OC and JPP and Matthias Kiwanuka. We knew the edge guys could get pressure, but from the defensive tackle perspective, we knew how important it was to push the pocket, not to allow the quarterback to step up. That Dallas Cowboys defensive line did that last night, and I think that's a big part of why they won.
All right, guys. Did you have fun?
Awesome time. Awesome time. You know, Nick Wright, just take your time. You don't have to come back anytime soon.
Wait, I'm sorry, you think Nick is up right now watching this?
Well,
I don't know about that.
He better be watching.
Yeah.
He better be paying attention.
Man, the day you take off, the day they lay off.
Yeah,
you guys have an unbelievable
Have a wonderful
weekend.
time.
Yes.
Enjoy Ohio
and your
State.
TVs
Give
aren't
them our
broke.
regards.
That's 6'2"-ish.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Chris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.